Hello, and welcome this week to your Realtor Reacts. Something that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give you anyway. We are talking about questions that people have asked this week on ChatGPT, and I am going to react to what ChatGPT has said. I'm also going to talk about some things that we heard about in the Playbook, which is a newsletter that I started getting. I just started getting this newsletter called The Playbook, and I will say I do like it, but it is a very bigger pockets sponsor heavy. Maybe it's just this week that it is, but I like bigger pockets, so that is okay with me. But if you're looking into it, just know that there's a lot of that going on. So I'm live on Instagram and on YouTube. So if you want to see what I'm sharing on my screen, hop over to YouTube, BrittanyHanduraRE, because that is where I share my screen and that is where the focus is. But you are more than welcome to come wherever you are. Okay, so let's jump in and see what it does ChatGPT say is going on this week. Okay, so the top real estate questions of the week. Is now a good time to buy a home? ChatGPT says yes, but it depends on your personal goals and local market conditions. Mortgage rates are hovering in the mid 6% range, which is more favorable than the peaks of recent years. Inventory remains tight in many areas, keeping prices stable. If you're financially prepared and planning to stay long term, now can be a strategic time to buy. Well, I agree with that pretty much 100%. I say every time is a good time to buy as long as you're financially ready. As long as you can afford to withstand 3 to 5 years in the property, it's always a good time to buy. Now, of course, interest rates are a little bit higher because we have a lot of people who are saying, I want that 3% interest rates back. I think people are starting to come to terms with realizing that's never going to happen. We're not going back to 3% interest rates. The reason we had that was because of a global pandemic. And so we don't want that to come back. We don't want that to happen again. So it's okay that we're not getting that 3%. Will it go lower? Potentially. And if and when it does go lower, guess what happens? It's all supply and demand. I say this 3 times a day, I think. It's all about supply and demand. If interest rates go lower, buyers are going to flood the market. We're going to have tons of people saying, yay, I'm ready to buy. And that's going to make housing prices continue to go up because you're still not going to get this huge influx of listings, of sellers, of houses on the market. So your supply is staying constrained, but your demand is going way up. That's going to push your prices up. So will there people say like, well, no, because if there's a bunch of buyers, they're also going to be sellers. But that's not necessarily true, right? We have a lot of buyers who come in as first-time home buyers. We have the biggest portion of our home buyers and people taking out mortgages are millennials, and a lot of millennials are first-time home buyers still. So you have a lot of first-time home buyers who don't have anything to sell. And you still have people who are coming into the area. So maybe if they sell, it's out of the area. So it's not necessarily a direct correlation that if you have buyers, then automatically you'll have more sellers. Maybe you'll have a little bit more sellers, but you're going to have way more buyers that are going to offset that. So right now, I say is a great time to buy because as long as you can financially withstand it, as long as you can make those monthly payments comfortably, then now is a great time to buy. Jump in, buy something, and then if interest rates do go down, you can refinance and you can get in still with your house being the lower cost price, and you don't have all of that competition that you would have had before or that you would have had if you had waited. The other thing is housing prices just keep going up. People are saying that they're stagnating or they're going to drop. They're not going to drop. Every single indicator is telling us that prices are still going to continue to go up. So maybe they're not going to go up as much as they did in 2020. That's true. That's fair, but they're going to go up. And so to wait on it and say, well, I'm going to wait because interest rates are going to go down, it's better for you to get in now so you can ride that appreciation wave up, as opposed to missing out on that. And now all you're doing is paying the higher price, because you're not going to get a 3% interest rate anyway. You're going to be waiting for it to go from 6.8 to 6.2. It's not going to be that big of a deal, but your housing prices is going to go up substantially. And now you might be priced out of that house that you initially wanted. So it's not a good idea to try and time the market. Never a good idea to try and time the market, but it's also not a good idea to say, I'm going to wait for interest rates to drop, because we don't know when, if, how that's all coming. In fact, let me pull up for you. I think this is that playbook newsletter that I was telling you about. And the average interest rates this week are 6.81%. So we're saying they average in the mid sixes. And that's because we have FHA, VA loans that are typically a lower interest rate. And then we have some loans that are higher interest rate, like jumbo loans. And so the average is 6.8. That's still that's nowhere near 3%, but that's still a pretty good rate, especially considering we were up to mid sevens. So now getting down into the mid sixes, this is okay. And we have a lot of people who are saying, yes, I'm more comfortable with this price point or with this interest rate price. So we're seeing a lot more buyers come to the market. We're seeing a lot more activity in the market. And so I tell people, as long as you're comfortable with the monthly payment, it really doesn't matter what your interest rate is. Most people don't, unless you have a screaming hot interest rate, like smoking hot, really good. What am I trying to say? It's really good. Unless you have a really good interest rate, you probably have no idea what your interest rate is, because here's my monthly mortgage. That's what matters to you. All right, let's jump back into ChatGPT and see what's next. Oh, we already touched on this. Number 2, what are the current mortgage rates? Well, as of May 2025, mortgage rates are in the mid 6% range. While this is higher than historic lows of the early 2020s, it's a slight relief compared to the recent peaks. Rates can vary based on your credit score, loan type, and lender. That's an important distinction, to say that your interest rate can vary, because a lot of people will see 6.8 and then they'll go to their lender and their lender will say, actually, yours is a 7.1. And they're like, what? Why is that? Well, it's because it could be the type of property you're getting. It could be the type of loan that you're getting. It could be your credit score. It could be how much you're putting down. All of that is going to change the interest rate. And the interest rate is based on basically the level of risk that the bank thinks you are. So the less you put down as a down payment, the higher the level of risk the bank is taking on, and the higher interest rate you'll get. The more you put down as a down payment, the lower level of risk and the lower your interest rate will be. The better your credit score, same thing, right? It's all about the level of risk that the bank is taking. And so you want to make sure that you're a great candidate all across the board. Number 3, what else does ChatGPT tell us? All right, so this week ChatGPT is saying, how can I improve my credit score to buy a home? This is a good question. Improving your credit score is crucial for securing favorable mortgage terms. Strategies include paying bills on time, reducing credit card balances, and avoiding new lines of credit before applying for a loan. Start early, as credit improvement takes time. This is a really good thing to take note of if you're thinking of buying a home. And another thing, it said it to make sure that you're not adding new lines of credit. So a lot of times what happens is people find their new home, they're excited about their new home, but they're like, oh, but our couch is not going to fit in that house. So we're going to go buy a $5,000 couch, put it on credit. But now all of a sudden your loan ratios are off. And now you can't qualify for that home because you got a couch. Don't buy anything. This happens so many times. I don't know why people think they're like flush with cash as soon as they buy a house, but this always happens where they're like, oh, I'm going to go and buy a new car before we close on a house. And then your loan to income ratio is off and you could miss out on being able to qualify for that loan now. So you do not want to do that. Do not put anything extra on credit until your home is closed and done, and then have at it. Do whatever you want. But Do not put anything on credit until your home is closed. And then, of course, just grow your credit, make it better. So many people are asking this because so many people have bad credit scores and they need to improve that to be able to get a favorable interest rate. Because the worse your credit score is, the worse your interest rate is going to be. So you want to make sure that you're building that up so that you can get a good interest rate from the start. Number 4, what should I look for during a home inspection? This is also a good question. And I think it's an interesting one because I'm wondering if people are actually asking this or if it's just something that they pulled up because they think I want to hear it. I don't know, chat. Let's see. Okay, whoops, I stopped sharing. Let me reshare. All right, so what should I look for during a home inspection? Focus on major system components such as roof, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. Look for signs of water damage, structural issue, or pest problems. Distinguish between deal breakers and fixable concerns to make informed decisions. So that's a key factor. Distinguish between something that is a deal breaker and something that is just good for you to know, because that is something that you really have to take into consideration, is that it's not about you coming in and buying a brand new home. The seller's not paying for everything to be fixed. The seller likely is going to pay for health and safety concerns, but they're not going to pay for cosmetic things. If you walk in and see that it has ugly carpet, you can't expect the seller to pay for it. Now, sometimes the seller does throw in a credit for that, but they're not going to throw it after the inspection. They're really going to say, well, the carpet was there when you came to view the house, so we're not going to throw this in after the fact. So make sure that you understand as a buyer that you're really looking for health and safety concerns to ask the seller to fix those, or the major system components in your house, the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, the roof, the foundation, flooring, all of that, not the actual flooring, but like foundational flooring. You want to look for structural things. You want to know, is this a good investment? Because the reality is that you want to make sure that you're investing your money into something good. You're not buying a brand new house. And even if you buy a brand new house, there are things that are not guaranteed. My friend bought a brand new house in the area and they are going through horrible situations. There was some kind of leak and we've had heavy rains this year. And because of that, literally every single house had some kind of structural issue with, I don't know if it was the flashing by the windows. I don't know exactly what it was, but every single house now has mold growing in it. Some of them have mushrooms growing in it because it's so bad. So they went back to the developer because these houses are a year, 2 years old. And the developer said, I'll give you $30,000 each. Well, when they got an estimate to fix them, it was over $300,000 per place because they have to remove all of the stucco from the entire exterior and redo everything. And the developer's offering them 30 grand. So buying a brand new house is not guaranteed. Nothing is a guarantee in life, right? But we do know that we have a lot of, there are more warranties built into a brand new house. So you do have to know that when you're buying a house that's not brand new, you're going to still have to make sure that you have something built in place, that you have something that you know is good. You're just checking on the major stuff because you're going to have to fix something. And basically what you're doing is you're just putting that in the budget. If this works for your budget, then great. If it doesn't, then that's when you know you want to pass on the house. If it's a $200,000 repair, maybe you don't want to do that. But if it's a $1,000 repair, maybe it's worth it. So that's what you're looking for when you're looking at inspections. All right, how can I boost my home's value before selling? So ChatGPT says, focus on improvements that offer a strong return on investment. Updating kitchen and bathrooms tend to have the most significant impact. Simple upgrades like replacing outdoor fixtures or adding a fresh backsplash can make a space feel more modern. Additionally, enhancing curb appeal and ensuring your home is clean and well maintained can attract potential buyers. So, what I like to tell people is there we go. What I like to tell people is you want to make sure that you are not, quote, over improving the neighborhood. And for the most part, you're not really going to be able to over improve the neighborhood unless you're putting like a second story when there are all single stories around you. But some things you might not get your money's worth. Like if you put $100,000 pool and redo the backyard and all of that, it might not directly give you $100,000 in additional sales price. But where you usually do see your money back are in the kitchen and bathrooms. So if you can make your kitchen and bathrooms updated and look nice, you're usually going to see a return on that. But what I tell people is if you're going to be there for the long haul, do whatever you want. Do the custom finishes, do, like all the weird, crazy stuff you want to do because you're going to enjoy that. But if you're going to list your house for sale, that is not what you want to do. You don't want to focus on the custom furnishings. What you want to do is you want to go and see what does a model home look like. Model homes are clean, they're simple, they're sleek. Try and make your home look as close to that as possible because model homes are out there for the masses. And that's who you want to attract. You want to attract the most eyeballs to your property. And you do that by doing what the model homes are doing. So make it easy, simple, and modern. What are the best cities to invest in real estate in 2025? Cities with strong job markets, affordable housing and infrastructure, and infrastructure development are attracting investors. Areas in the Sun Belt like Charlotte, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas continue to draw attention due to economic growth and quality of life. So this is definitely something that you want to look into because if you're like me and your current area is a little pricier than you would want to invest in, then a lot of times people are looking at long distance real estate investing. And if that's you, this is how I got my start. Before I even bought a house for myself personally, I bought an out-of-state property because I was like, there's no way that I can afford this. I've since sold that property and I am really trying to focus more on my area and areas surrounding my area that are lower cost areas that have decent price to rent ratios and things like that. But that's what you want to look into. And with ChatGPT and technology as it is today, it is easier than ever to look into the demographics of places, look into the rent stability, look into the price to rent ratios, all of that in a given market. So it's easier to find than ever. And then you just find something that you want to invest in that makes sense for you. And I will say, depending on the type of investor that you are, you want to make it so that something that like goes with your lifestyle. Like when I first bought my first property, I was like, I want it to be the cheapest property I can find, basically. I want it to, and I did my research and I figured it out. But what I didn't take into consideration was that where I was investing, there was no easy way to get there. I ended up buying in Dayton, Ohio. I live in LA. There was no direct flight to Dayton, Ohio, surprisingly, at the time. And so I had to fly into one of their other airports and then drive 2 hours to get there, or I had to take another flight and all of this stuff. It just wasn't that easy to get to. Now, granted, I only went there once, so it didn't matter. But as a brand new investor, number one, I probably should have been able to get there easier. And number two, I think it's something that like I would like to invest somewhere where I would like to go again. And Dayton, Ohio was not somewhere where I was ever going to go again, except to check on my rental property. So if it's something that you think like, oh yeah, maybe I'll have an Airbnb here and come and stay and check on my rentals or whatever it is, it just needs to fit with you and who you are. If you're like a commercial investor and you're just going to be like buying stuff up and never go see it, then great, good on you. But I do think that for me, it was, there were a couple of things that I was like, I would do this differently if I did it today. Let's go back to ChatGPT. Number 7, should I sell my house before buying a new one? This is a good question. And ChatGPT says this depends on your financial situation and market conditions. Selling first can provide the funds needed for your next purchase, but may require temporary housing. Buying first ensures you have a new home lined up, but may necessitate carrying 2 mortgages temporarily. Evaluate your risk tolerance and consult with a real estate professional to determine the best strategy. So, of course, another strategy to this is buying it concurrently, where you close on your current home and then you buy the next one so that the money lines up. But what I would say is financially, if you can, it is easier to sell a house where nobody is living in it, because then you can do as many showings as you want. You can stage it how you want. You can clean it up how you want. You can do whatever. It is easier to sell like that. But a lot of people cannot handle multiple um, mortgages and things like that. So that doesn't make sense for a lot of people. So if you are going to stay in the house, then you want to make sure that you are keeping it really clean and like living there the least amount possible. And you want to make sure that you are, I mean, I always say, whatever you have up, take down half of it, because you're already going to be moving, you're already going to be packing stuff up. So just take down half of the stuff that you have, because people want to see them. They want to imagine them in your space, not you in your space. So whatever you can do to kind of make it less is more. And then you can, people can see themselves more easily in that. And then what I also will say about that is that you want to also make sure that you are, well, I guess what I should say is I sold a property first before I bought the next property. And that was nice because it made it so that I didn't have a ton of urgency, but that is a much more expensive way to do it, because I had to have movers come twice. I had to go month to month on a rental to be able to get into another place and all of that. So it makes it so that you have less urgency to buy something, but it does make it so that it ends up being more expensive anyway. So it just depends on your financial situation and like what you're able to withstand mentally. Okay. How is technology impacting the real estate process? So ChatGPT says technology is streamlining real estate transactions through virtual tours, AI-driven home valuations, and online contract management systems. Smart home features are increasingly popular, offering buyers control over security, climate, and lighting. Partnering with a tech-savvy real estate agent or team can enhance your buying or selling experience. So this is something that, of course, we're all talking about right now. You guys know that I am like a tech-savvy agent. This is something that I do. I use ChatGPT every day in every way to do everything with me, for me, help me, and figure out like how I can make it so that I can operate as lean as possible, but provide the best service. And so this saying like, I mean, realistically, I think that in the next probably 5 years, probably less, real estate agents are not going to be needed to fill out forms. They're not going to be needed to even probably like schedule showings or transactions. And so your real estate agent really is going to be there as an advisor, really is going to be there as somebody that you need to walk you through the process. So, what I tell, because, of course I'm a coach, so I'm walking through this with agents too. And what I tell them is, listen, we have TurboTax, but we still have CPAs. We have Rocket Lawyer, but we still have attorneys. There's always going to be a need for real estate agents, but it's going to be those higher level agents. And so you want to find those higher level agents. If you're ready to buy or sell, you really want to talk to those people who are operating at a higher level, who are using technology to their advantage and not afraid of the technology that's coming. So I think that absolutely there is a place for technology and AI and all of that. And it is very helpful to the agent if they're willing to embrace it. So you just got to find somebody who is embracing it wholeheartedly. Okay, and then number 9, what does it mean when an agent buys a listing? I actually added this one in here because I was hearing about this and I know that a lot of people don't know what that means. But for sellers, this is a major thing that you have to be aware of. Like agents are out there and they are, quote, buying a listing, which is something that real estate agents say, but not something that like the general public necessarily knows. So let's talk about what does it mean to buy a listing? So the short answer, buying a listing is when a real estate agent intentionally overprices a home at a listing presentation or consultation just to win the listing, even though they know it likely won't sell at that price. So why do they do it? The seller is emotionally attached or believe the home is worth more. So if they're saying, if you're looking at it, the agent is looking at it saying, I think this home is worth 950, but the seller is saying, well, I want $1,050,000. You're like, ooh, we are way off. But the seller is like, I'm not going to work with you unless you can get me that price. That's when sometimes an agent will say, okay, let's go with that price. Let's go with that price. This is not a good idea, and we'll talk about why. Another agent gives a realistic lower price, but the seller chooses the agent who quotes the highest number. So again, like this will be something like that, and I might come in and say, hey, your home is worth 950. We should actually list it at 939, 945, whatever, and then try and get a bidding war going and bid it up. And another agent comes in and says, oh, you want $1,050,000? I'll list it for $1,050,000. And then that agent gets the listing, but the reality is they're not going to sell it for that, and they're probably going to get less than what I would have gotten you if you would have gone with my strategy. So it's very important to not just go with somebody who's going to overprice the listing. And then that agent buys the listing by telling the seller what they want to hear, not what the market is saying. Okay, so why is this all a problem? Well, the home sits on the market too long. It might need multiple price reductions. And buyers are going to start to assume something's wrong with the property, so they're not going to buy it at that price. And it can ultimately sell for less than if it had been priced correctly from the beginning. I actually just had a house close that was this exact situation. It was pretty frustrating because I saw the writing on the wall and I tried to say it from the beginning, but I was working with another agent. But basically what happened was that the seller said, I want this price for my property. And we said, well, realistically, it should be down at this price. And they said, no, we think it should be at this price. We explained all the reasons why, and they still said, no, I think it should be at this price. So I said, okay, here we go. How about if we agree to the higher price, but if it doesn't sell within 2 weeks, we're going to lower it. Yeah, let's do that. We get to the point, 0 showings, like nothing, which is unheard of. 0 showings, 0 people reaching out. Like surely something should be happening. No, nothing. And so of course we knew it's because it's priced too high. So we go back to the sellers after 2 weeks and say, okay, well, let's adjust the price like we had talked about. And they said, no, we want to leave the price where it is. So of course we go back and forth, and finally we ended up just saying, okay, well, let's leave it where it is. But I was saying, here's what's going to happen. It's going to go for lower, lower, lower. What did it end up doing? It went for lower. It finally sold, but for lower than what we had talked about. The seller had put in a lot of money toward the house because they were trying to make it more attractive to buyers. And it just ended up being, if he would have gone with what we had said from the beginning, it probably would have sold for higher and they wouldn't have had to put all that money in the house. But lesson learned for them because I mean, that's just the reality of it. So many people think that they can do that. And the agents who are buying the listing and saying, sure, we can do that. We can go for the higher price. It's just not a good idea. So pro tip for sellers, always ask the agent for data, comparable sales, market trends, and their pricing strategy. A good agent will back up their price recommendation with facts, not flattery. This is so true. You want to make sure that you're seeing the comparables. If you're seeing the comparables are all $50,000 than what you think it should sell for, well, then it probably should be listed at $50,000 less. And maybe it'll sell for higher, but you want to rely on the person who's doing this day in and day out. So make sure you're working with a good agent. Make sure you're working with an agent who understands the numbers, understands the pricing, has a pricing strategy so that you can get top dollar for your house, because that's what all sellers want, is top dollar for their house, right? They want a smooth transaction and top dollar for their house. So make sure that you're working with a really good agent. If you need help finding an agent, reach out to me because I can help find you an agent. I'll connect you with an agent all over the country. I have great agents that I work with. And that is it for today. So remember, I'm here every Thursday at 3 p.m. live with you, where we talk about all kinds of random stuff, whatever tickles my fancy that day. You guys can ask questions and I'll answer to the best of my ability. And I jump in and I ask ChatGPT, what do they think about the market? And then, because nobody asked, I give you my reaction. So that's what we do on Thursdays. Real estate agents, on Tuesdays at 9:30, I am with you again live doing a training of lots of different things. This coming week, we're having a guest lender speaking, talking about the market and what's going on with interest rates and how to help buyers in the best possible way. So make sure you're there for me for that. And that is all. I will see you guys next Thursday or next Tuesday. Bye.